Hello and welcome to Downriver Rescue Connection. I'm your host, Patty Radikovich, and it's my pleasure to bring you information on animal-related topics in the animal rescue community. On today's episode, we are highlighting animal rescue volunteers. Volunteers are so important to the animal rescue community because they actually do a lot of the work, and if it wasn't for volunteers, we wouldn't be able to help as many animals as we do help. So I wanted to introduce you to 3 volunteers that have agreed to be on the show today, so thanks for being brave souls. This is Debbie Wistinghausen, and she is here with her dog, Willie. And Willie's also a volunteer too, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. This is Jeanie Denstedt and Michelle McShane. So welcome to the show, guys.
Hello.
Thanks.
So Debbie, why don't we start with you? Tell us, where do you volunteer? How do you volunteer with animals?
Well, I volunteer at Friends of Michigan Animal Rescue. It's in Belleville, and I work with the dogs. I brought home Willie when I found him. I do a lot of cleaning, cleaning the kennels, taking the dogs out, washing bowls, feeding, but there's lots of other things that you can do there.
Okay, great. And like I said, we're going to come back and see what Willie does, because he does something a little bit different when he volunteers. So Jeanie, how do you volunteer with animals?
I do a lot of different things. I do things with different groups. Right now I'm cleaning cages at one of the PetSmart stores for the cats that are able to stay in there, get more exposure. I walk dogs. I foster a lot. I've trapped kittens. I've actually bottle-fed kittens the first time this year. It didn't go all that well, but I like to help. I'm a good helper, so I like to help wherever I can.
Great. And Michelle, what about you? How do you volunteer?
Well, Patty, I work with Basil's Buddies, and I work with Chained. With Basil's Buddies, I've done the animal or the food bank, and what else have we done?
Bake sales. And
Fostering. Fostering. And with Chained, I go out to Southwest Detroit, and we basically teach people how to take care of their animals that are kept outside 24/7. Like the animals that have the heavy chains on, we evaluate that and give them lighter chains. We give them straw, a house, and we do evals. We go back out and we see them and all that good stuff. So we keep tabs, and if the owners are taking care of their dogs, putting on weight in the wintertime. So that's what we do.
Great. And I wanted to bring you guys on the show. I mean, I know each of you, and I've worked with each of you, and also I should say that Debbie does my hair for the shows. Not today, but so you can't blame this hairstyle on her. But Debbie does my hair for the shows, and that's a different way that she volunteers as well, because that's her. That's one of her talents. So I wanted to bring everybody on because you each do something a little bit different, and you do something that works for you. And I think that's one of the biggest complaints one of the biggest drawbacks people have as to why they're not going to volunteer is they say, oh, it won't fit my schedule. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, how do you make volunteering work with your schedule?
Let me go.
So, yeah.
Basically, I volunteer when I have time. If I can do it, I do it. If I can't, I can't. A lot of times I'll feel guilty, but there's really no way around it. You just give your time to whatever it is you can do. I mean, if you can't do a function like a fundraiser or anything like that, you can go work at a shelter, or like with Basil's Buddies when we have the what do you call them, the arts and crafts and stuff.
Yep.
Take those to work, sell them. So I've done that before, and I guess it's like you don't have to draw blood or anything. Give them your firstborn kid. Say, hey, I could do it.
Right.
You can't.
And Michelle, you're a good example, because with your schedule, you work midnight shifts, and so it's a different shift than most everybody else. So most everybody else is volunteering during the day when you're sleeping, because you work different hours. And so one of the things that you were talking about is when we have bake sales, or at Christmas time, we usually go to in Trenton, it's the country Christmas event, and we sell our crafts and we sell baked goods, and whatever doesn't sell at those events, Michelle takes them to her work and then sells them for us. And so those things don't go to waste, and she's actually been able to sell more at her work than we sell at the actual event. So it works out really well for us.
Christmas gifts.
Right. So all these people that are, they work midnights and they don't have time to go out shopping, they can shop.
They're
with
cute
her,
stuff too. They have like little mugs and chocolate covered pretzels, and I buy like 5 of them. So I have tons of Christmas mugs.
Yeah, so that's really great that you do that to make that work for your schedule. Now, Jeanie, how do you volunteer like with your schedule? Your schedule's a little more open, right?
Yeah, I'm actually retired, so I do have a lot of time, but I like to have a couple things scheduled for the week. Like right now I'm cleaning cat cages, which I like to do and play with the cats. And then Facebook is so good to see what's going on, with everybody in rescue. So then I can see what people need, or especially the fundraisers. I like to go to a lot of the fundraisers. I went to, you have one at the Apple Fest. I came to the Apple Fest, and Basil Buddies was there, WAGS was there. There's a lot of fundraisers that I go to, and sometimes you can make things for their fundraisers, which I do a little bit of sewing on when I feel like it. And it's nice being retired because I don't have, I can do what I want when I want. If my hands hurt, I can stop sewing for a while and do something else.
And that's a really good example too of, if you want to do something on your own time, like almost every rescue group has some type of craft sale or they're selling something. And if you can make something and you have a group or a shelter that you want to donate your time and efforts to, you can make stuff for them and give it to them, on your time and have them sell it. I know people that make for one of the shelters, there's people that make cat scratching posts. They give them to the shelter. And even like you said, just attending the fundraisers if you can, and Facebook. If you don't have time for anything else, everybody's on Facebook, just sharing an animal.
Yeah,
Another thing you can do too is call up your local animal shelter. Call up your local animal shelter and say, hey, what supplies do you need? If you can't really volunteer, you can give to the animal shelter that is in your area. Say, hey, because they need cat litter, they need food, they need detergent for washing dog beds and stuff like that. So you can also do that.
Yeah,
all the rescues too, they have wish lists, which I like to look at the wish list because there'll be things you wouldn't think of.
Might even be building supplies.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you can drop those off at places. And so, Debbie, talk about your schedule and how you fit that into, how you fit volunteering into your schedule.
I work 4 days a week, so I have 3 days off. I spend 1 day out at the rescue and cleaning and whatever. I might pull weeds one day and along with the cleaning of the kennels. Sometimes we get called to go to schools or companies that want to see the rescue dogs. So we've taken them there and told them about Friends of Michigan Animal Rescue, how they got started, what we do there, what the goals are, to get more kennels. And I always take Willie, and we introduced Willie. And we talk to mostly children. When we talk to the children, we talk to them about how to care for their animals, how they need exercise, foods they should and shouldn't eat. Also making sure that they do get them spayed or neutered so that they're not creating more of a problem. So we try to educate them on not only the rescue and what we do there, but taking care of their animals and what's involved in an animal. It's not just a Christmas gift.
Right. That's great. And as you mentioned, Willie goes along with you, and that's how Willie volunteers, because as you can tell, he is a very calm dog. just sitting here.
He's my little buddy.
And especially, kids love animals, so it's great to be able to have an animal that's calm. To have an animal that's calm that you can take in with you, because a lot of times if you're talking, and once you start, I've given presentations to kids about animals, and once you start talking, and they know you're talking about animals, they love it. But if you have an animal with you, it just enhances the presentation so much, and I think it actually helps them focus more because they can relate to the animal that's in front of them.
Yeah.
So that's great that Willie volunteers too. So
I know.
So now we've already alluded to some of these things, but what would you say is the most unusual way that you've ever helped volunteer with an animal rescue? Just to again give people ideas of how they can help. Like what was something maybe different that you did?
When I bottle fed those kittens, that was unusual for me, and that was hard for me. I mean, luckily someone took them over the next day. 2 times I did that, And sometimes you're kind of a little afraid to do, but you manage to do it, and then there's another group that will help you. There's a lot of rescue people you can always call and get information from. That helped a lot, so that was an unusual experience, a different experience for me.
Okay, great.
I think the most unusual one for me actually wasn't at Friends of Michigan. Another shelter had called and asked me if I could, well, actually I volunteered. I saw there was a need, and I said, I can go pick up this dog. And so I drove all the way to Coldwater, picked up the dog, took it to Farmington to the vet, where another group was going to pick it up after being fixed. So that was a whole day, and gas, but it was worth it. We had a good time picking up that dog.
Yeah, so you were doing transport. And so, these are some of the things that people don't realize.
That was different.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned landscaping, and so people might think, what does landscaping have to do with animal rescue?
Well, they all have property, and you want it to look nice. So, I mean, there's mowing the lawn. You might want to plant flowers to make it look nice. Weeds, I mean, you don't want weeds everywhere, so, pull weeds. Just everything you would do around your house, So, even as far as donating things to, in that aspect, there's a lot of things could be used.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's what people don't realize. If there's an actual facility, the facility has the same needs as, like you said, you would have at home. So if there's property, you want it to look appealing to people to come in to see the animals. That's why there's a lot of shelters now that are getting local artists or high school art classes. At FMAR, they had, I think, the Girl Scout troop did it.
I think so, inside the cat house.
Yeah, and they have people that come in and do painting. So if there's a skill set that you have that you can somehow donate and help them, that's a good way to do something too. And then Michelle, you had mentioned that you were fostering before. So can you talk about your experience with fostering?
Yeah, my failed foster? Yeah, sure. My very first time fostering, I ended up keeping the dog, but then we found a really good sanctuary for her. And then my second time fostering was a dog. Can I say his name?
Go ahead.
Sammy, my little Sammy. That was my first initial let go. My first initial let go, where I actually had a dog and I saw him go off to another home, and that was difficult. That was really difficult. But you do get used to it. You do get used to it when you know that you have a really good family taking on an animal that you cared for. You know that they're going to go to another home, and that animal is going to go right with them and make them their family too. So you do get used to it. A lot of people are scared about fostering, which we do need fosters. We do need fosters. A lot of people are scared about failed fostering, which isn't a bad thing. A failed foster isn't a bad thing. It's you end up keeping the pet. So, and I learned a lot from you, a lot from Basil's buddies. And where was I going? Oh, just, and then my third foster, my Freddie, I ended up keeping. I got him out of Taylor Animal Shelter, and I ended up keeping him just because he had so many things with him that I did not have the heart to have him go somewhere else. So I just ended up keeping him, and I'm so glad I did because he's awesome. Yeah.
So and that's fine that. We've had shows on fostering before, and we've talked about that. It's perfectly acceptable to be a foster failure. Right? Because actually we count on some of that in rescue. The animals have to go somewhere, and let's face it, if you're an animal rescuer, you probably have animals of your own too, and sometimes we end up with the ones that we know nobody else will adopt, and then we have to be careful because you don't want to go over your own limit. But it's okay if you're a foster failure. It just means that you fell in love with this animal, and there's still more to foster later. And everybody reacts to fostering differently, and there's some people that it's really difficult when the animal goes somewhere else, but they see the good in it. And then there's like people like me, like if I foster puppies, I'm like, yes, they're out of my house.
I think some people have a fear of going to shelters and wanting to take them all home.
Yes.
Maybe they don't really want a dog, but they want to go help. And that's perfectly all right too, because actually when I got out there, everybody said that to me. Well, don't you want to take them all home? No, I really don't.
Right.
They're very well taken care of. Their kennels are cleaned morning and night. I mean, they have got a great home there. And I know that. I see them every week. And so I don't feel like that. But, I mean, I did feel like that once, but he just happened to fit in my house,
Right.
you know. So you don't have to be afraid to take them all home when you know they're being cared for.
Right. And
They're going to find a home.
Right.
It doesn't always have to be you, you know.
Right. And there's some like this, it's like I said, there's some that you just fall in love with them, and those are the ones you keep, and then there's other ones, it's like you're babysitting them, and it's not like you don't love them and you don't want to take care of them, but when they go to that home, is you're like, all right, you get to go back to a home, and that's, and so there's two different reactions a lot of people get from fostering, and either one is totally acceptable. So, have you fostered?
Yes. Yeah.
What's your experience with fostering?
A lot of them are sick. I'm better at taking care of a sick or injured animal, whether a cat or a dog.
Right, that's what you do.
And I like to get them well. You know, it may take a month, you know, or longer. But that's kind of, I've kept several, probably all of my dogs and cats are either fosters or from shelters. But I don't mind. You know, you just can't keep taking them in all the time.
Right.
You know. And I do have such appreciation for the fosters that rescue groups that do take the sick, old, and injured animals out of shelters and foster them in their home and get them all vetted, get them all taken care of. They do the hard work. Those people do the hard work, you know, to me, you know, because it's really hard for, especially the senior dogs. You know, I have so much appreciation for people that take the senior dogs.
Now, there was one in particular that was just recent. Did you want to talk about?
Theo, yes.
Yeah.
I took Theo home. He was a shelter cat that was actually from a hoarding situation. And we took him right to the vet, and he was supposed to stay at the vet over the weekend. But he ended up, when the blood test came back, he was diabetic. So he had to get on insulin right away, and he had to have 2 shots a day. And it was a weekend where there wasn't going to be anybody there the second 12th hour to giving the insulin, so we had to come and get him. And I took him home. I went and got him, got the insulin. They showed me how to do it and everything. And I thought I would have him for longer than a month. You know, I figured he was going to be my next foster and be there quite a while. He was in such bad shape. And Basil Buddies called the next morning and said that they could take him in, which you did. And I took him out to the vet that you use, Cahill Vet, which is excellent. So I was as pleased as could be that you're fostering him, and he went to Cahill Vet, and I know he'll be well taken care of, and he's doing a lot better because you've kept up with me and told me about him. It's so nice when you do foster and then you get to find out about how they're doing later.
Yeah, and in this particular one, it's when, you know, here, you're the one that, you know, kind of saved him in the first place, and then, you know, our group does the specialty rescue, so we stepped up. And we have to say, for this particular cat, he did end up going, staying in ICU for 9 days after we took him, because he was really emaciated and really in bad shape. But he's doing much better now, and so now he's to the point where we've got him just about leveled off with the insulin, so he'll actually be going up for adoption pretty soon.
Oh,
so.
good Theo.
So, now, one of the things I want to talk about, and we've addressed some of the concerns that a lot of people have, but some people are afraid, because there's differences in shelters and rescues, and there's some shelters that are no-kill or close to no-kill, and then there's shelters that are high-kill shelters. And there's some people that are just afraid to walk in anywhere because they don't, you know, they're not necessarily sure, is this place telling me the truth? If they say they're a no-kill, are they truly no-kill? How do I know that? So, and you were talking a little bit about, you know the facility, you've checked it out, this is a rescue.
Right.
But what do you do if have any of you ever worked with a group where it just wasn't a good fit and like you just moved on to something else?
I did.
Okay.
You know, there's other places that need help. Not that you don't like the people, but you know, you want to do something else. You know, maybe they're not going in the direction that you want to do things for. You know, and I don't think anyone had a problem with it, and I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and that's, and I just want to bring that up because for people say, I don't want to volunteer because of this. Not every group is going to be a good fit for everyone. Everybody has their own philosophies. Everybody, you know, whether it's timing that's an issue or the philosophy that's an issue, or maybe you just don't get along with the person that's in charge. You know, it could be a personality conflict. It's okay if the first time you try something, it's not a good fit. There's so many other rescues and shelters out there that are willing to take people in and work with people. You know, keep trying if you really like the animals. So what are some, does anybody have any like really good rescue stories, something that sticks out in your mind? Anything from an animal or just in a way that you helped?
My little dog Scruffy, a little scruffy little dog. In fact, I named him Scruffy. He was sick at the shelter, and I took him home and right to the vet. This was a couple years ago. He only lived 3 months. As soon as I took him to the vet, they told me he had cancer, you know, and he got a little bit better. He was probably good for 6 weeks and then bad for 6 weeks. He was smaller than this dog here, yeah, and sat in my lap every night. And it is good when you can take care of a sick older dog, you know, that was my little love, my little scruffy dog.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that. And I know that's not something that everybody can do emotionally, but a lot of people, it's weird because when people will say, I can't do that, and then it happens to you out of the blue, and you're like, what am I going to do? Because I just took this animal home. I'm not going to take him back. And then once they go through that experience, there are people that say, oh, I realize like what I've contributed to this animal, and they can continue then to do that work. Because I know that people who never ever wanted to even touch hospice animals, they ended up getting one in their home, and now they've become a hospice home for other animals. So thank you for doing that for that dog, so he didn't have to spend his last days at a shelter.
I don't have any particular dog I did anything for besides this one, but we do have one at the shelter that we always talk about when we go and we talk to people, and her name is Starla, and she was blind, and she has diabetes, and they actually had her eyes fixed so she could see, but she does get her insulin shots every day. I don't know if it's morning and night. I don't give them to her, but the volunteers there, she will probably stay there because she is well cared for, and it's hard to find people that will, you know, take home a dog that has to have so much attention. But she's taken care of. It's everybody's prize. You always talk about Sarah. You know, if there's a fundraiser or someplace to go, that's the time she'll go. You know, so she gets out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I got all my boys from shelters. All my boys were rescues. Ralphie, I got from Wyandotte, and that was when Wyandotte was, they were overflowing with dogs, so we all went out there. He's my Staffordshire. Nicholas, I got at the Taylor Animal Shelter when he was 15 weeks. I was there looking at dogs, and this lady was forced to get rid of her 15-week-old pit bull because of the landlord, and she was crying and, are you here to get a dog? And I was like, yeah. And I saw it was a pit bull, and immediately in my head I'm thinking, oh my God, what is my mom going to say? Oh my God, what is my sister going to say? Oh my God. So, but long story short, whenever my mom comes over, my ferocious pit bull is on her lap licking her face. So
I've walked a lot of pit bulls, and they are the sweetest dogs. They get the friendliest dogs sometimes. They really are.
And then, and Freddie I got from the Taylor Animal Shelter as well. And he was left in the backyard of his, whatever family had him. They picked up and moved and left him in the backyard. So, and I tried lobbying him on Facebook, and that's another thing you can do too, is share. And he just wasn't going anywhere, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go get him. And June 4th, 2012, he became mine.
That's great. So what's the funnest thing that you've ever done volunteering?
Oh, I love the Christmas thing. I made cookies last year. That was fun. Got to eat cookie dough.
I think the funnest part is the fundraisers. You know, we do Cinco de Mayo. We have a bowling fundraiser coming up in February. So the fundraisers are always fun.
What about for you, Jeanie?
I like going to fundraisers. I always have fun getting together with everybody because I know a lot of rescue people, and it's always a good time to get together with them. You know, so I went to Cinco de Mayo every year. Me and my husband go to that. That's a blast.
Change at a poker tournament.
Yeah, there's so many things out there now, and people can volunteer to help with a fundraiser. I know, like I said, Change had a poker tournament. I think they had a murder mystery dinner that's coming
up in November.
There's some places that have had carnivals. Like you said, you guys have, the FMAR has the Cinco de Mayo event. At Basil's Buddies, we do an event in Trenton at the Cultural Center, Country Christmas.
The tent the one year at the
Oh yeah,
Street
the Midsummer
Fair.
Festival. So yeah, there's a lot of the different festivals. Groups will have tents there. There's some expos that people go to, and so a lot of those things are really great. So just to kind of, we're getting towards the end of the show, but I just wanted to again get that message out there to people that don't be afraid to try to volunteer. Don't worry about the timing. You can do things on your own time, and honestly, there's so many different things that you can do to volunteer. If you're one of those people that's afraid that if you see the animal you're going to fall in love with them, or that you're going to feel bad because you don't know if they're going to end up getting adopted or something like that, there's things you can do to help animals without actually having contact with an animal. There's so many things.
Yes.
Sharing on Facebook is one of the easiest things that you can do. You can just pick any shelter you want and share. But just as one last thing, to kind of wrap up, why do you continue to volunteer?
It's meaningful. When I started volunteering, and you were my first cause, I wanted something meaningful in my life. I need to put some kind of meaning in my life, because a lot of people will have that plateau. And that's what I did. I was like, let me just do something. So that's what I did.
Okay, great.
Probably I went to a shelter one time and it was a dump, and so I went there to help.
That's great.
But then I found out about rescues, and I found out about so much more, and so many animals need help, and there's so many little things you can do. If, so many animals, the vet bills are just terrible for the rescue groups to have to pay for. If you can donate. If they have, then they have fundraisers, to bring in money to pay for vetting and stuff. You can make stuff for the fundraisers, whether it's bake sale, sewing some craft thing, some things like that. There's a lot of little things you can actually do, than physically going to shelters or something if you're a person that doesn't like to do that.
Great.
I think I actually started it for a selfish reason. I wanted to exercise. And I thought, well, that's a good way to exercise. You can either clean or walk dogs. You're always moving. But then the longer that you're there, and actually at Friends of Michigan Animal Rescue, Marcy wrote a book. And after I read her book and her dream about her rescue, that just even motivated me more, because I more wanted to help her fulfill her goal. So not only what you guys said, because it all grows, it just keeps growing.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming out and sharing stories. Hopefully you've inspired some other people to start volunteering if they're afraid to do it, just to, start doing it. So thanks, Michelle and Jeanie and Debbie and Willie.
Thanks for having us, Patty.
Yeah, thank you.
We all look forward to a day when all pets are treated like family and everyone has a home. Until that time, we invite you to be part of the solution. And remember, please spade and neuter your pets. See you next time.
Bye.